Michael Kroger, Tasmanian Premier Peter GUTWEIN, a Liberal, has just quit this afternoon, only 2 years into his term. He's done an Ash Barty. He says he can't keep giving 110% to the job. And in his case, he wants to spend more time not on the golf course, but with his family. It's not a good time for the federal Liberals, is it, for him to quit a month out from an election with a couple of must-win seats for the Liberals in his state?
No, probably not, but it is what it is. Peter's done a great job in difficult circumstances down there, and we wish him well. But, it is what it is. Voters can distinguish between state and federal, and, it's going to be tough in Tasmania. And yes, of course, Andrew, they are seats we must hold in Tasmania if Scott is going to be re-elected on May 14 or May 21, whichever one it is.
Yeah. And Steve Conroy, the polls today, there were actually two. I mentioned the NEWSPOLL. The Liberals 8 points behind Labor. There was also another poll. They're 10 points behind Labor. Have you started putting the champagne on ice? Not that you drink, I know that. But, put a glass of milk on ice.
Yeah, no, look, I've not been a big fan of Ipsos for a while. It got things drastically wrong, as NEWSPOLL did last time. I know both of them pretend that they've made substantive changes to their polling techniques to try and, they've never admitted what the mistakes were last time. So I don't know if you won't tell the truth about what the mistakes were, it's hard to take them seriously about, we fixed those mistakes. But look, I think that a 10-point drop of 41 to 31 from the last federal election for the Liberals, that's probably a bit on the high side in terms of the size of that drop. I think NEWSPOLL began to reflect a little bit tighter. I never believed Labor was sitting on 41 when the poll came out a few weeks ago from NEWSPOLL. I thought it's always been 38, 39 on its best day. So I think you're starting to see NEWSPOLL reflect, I think, the sentiment. But what I thought was really interesting was that Ipsos broke out, 14% in the other column. And I think that's the sleeper here, what the preferences of that 14% are going to do in key marginal seats. And that will ultimately decide the election.
Yep, absolutely. And just leave the Conservative viewers of this show, Michael Kroger, with some good news that you might have detected in the polls.
Yes, well, I don't think national security made a difference in the polls, the whole issue in relation to the Ukraine, which is unusual because in times of national crisis, people tend to revert to the government in power. But voters are starting to look at economic management. They're starting to worry about what would happen if Frydenberg and Morrison weren't in charge. They're starting to think about interest rates. They're starting to think about tax. They're starting to think, well, if this guy's been a member of the socialist left all his life, Albanese, why is he adopting Scott Morrison's economic policy? It's all not sort of adding up for Labor. And the trouble with the small target strategy is you actually limp to the line. And Albo's got to hide for the next month and a bit. And that's hard to do under the glare of federal politics. But that's why, the federal coalition needs to be a lot tougher on him personally. So some ministers and backbenchers ought to get out there and point out that this guy, he's basically, in a policy sense, completely unfit to be Prime Minister, and that'll make a big difference, Andrew.
Steve Conroy and Michael Kroger, thank you both so much for your time.